Welcome, everybody, to the Big Dudes in the Trenches podcast. I am Doug, and there are two other guys here, Bug
Hello.
and Tug.
Hey, that was really slow. It was throwing me off. I know that's what you're doing on purpose, but it worked. It was throwing me off.
His whole shtick tonight has been trolling us as much as possible.
And he's winning.
Yeah.
He wins at that.
I am. Also, I said Big Dudes in the Trenches. This is actually Big Dudes in the Dugout. We are talking Major League Baseball offseason transactions. There has been one major trade since our last episode. The Giants got themselves a big-time rotation arm, former Cy Young winner Robbie Ray, coming over from the Mariners. Big deal. I know it's been a while since that Cy Young.
And the Cubs finally fucking signed somebody, so let's go.
That was that since the last episode, though?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's true, because the Cubs didn't sign shit until yesterday.
They have 7 catchers on the roster right now.
What is
7.
with Chicago sports teams in really liking one position?
I don't
Tight
know.
ends and catchers. There's a theme going on here.
Pitchers. It'd have been fucking nice. Hey, and don't talk shit, all right? They won a World Series with 3 catchers on the 40-man roster.
Did you catch that though? That was one of the greatest Tug bits of all time. And you just glossed over it.
It would have been better if I hadn't already thought the same thing. I was like, it's like the fucking Bears with fucking tight ends. Like I thought the second I saw it, that was the first thing.
He missed the joke. He missed the joke. They're tight ends and catchers, man.
Yes.
Is
there something Chicago's trying to tell us?
Probably. Have you been to that part of Chicago?
I like getting beaned
before rush hour.
All right, so we're not a baseball podcast. We are a hockey podcast. Big Dudes on the blue line. Edmonton Oilers, Chicago Blackhawks in the first period tonight. Let's go. The big storyline.
Who cares? Connor Bedard. Yep, he's out for like 6 to 8 weeks. It's unfortunate. Make it 5 weeks. He's going to come back with the fucking fishbowl on.
Yep.
But I will say Jason Dickinson with an unassisted goal in the first period opened up the goal scoring. Very exciting. And then, of course, Edmonton had to come back.
You can see it behind me. I've had Blackhawk stuff behind me since our first episode, since I've been here.
Yes,
we can talk Blackhawks for a while if you really want to, but I think you want to because you don't want to talk about the college football playoff national championship game.
All right, you want to talk playoffs? Let's talk playoffs. The Bills won the division. The Dolphins couldn't get it done.
All right. That does roll me into something, and it killed me because as soon as this happened, I had been saying it all playoff run for the FCS. Special teams have to be special. As soon as that kick return or that punt return went, I knew stuff was about to hit the fan.
Hey, Bug, I know both of the teams you're repping right now are in the playoffs, both the Cleveland Browns and the team that Baker Mayfield currently plays for. That's right. He's wearing a jersey, ladies and gentlemen.
All right. Let's get into the show here.
No, we're in the show. This is the show. What are you talking about? So Mike Vrabel got let go. Crazy times.
Doug's worst nightmare happened.
Crazy times.
It's his worst nightmare on so many levels, and we'll get there. We'll get there.
I mean, it looks like you're trying to force us there. I'm trying to have a good time, and you're not allowing it.
You can have a good time on the second half of the show.
Apparently not. I guess. Jeez.
The final game of the 14.
Iowa State is tied right now, and it's about to go to overtime, and you're not letting me talk about college basketball. Literally, give me anything other than this, please.
All right. I have a solution.
Iowa State is about to upset
I have a
Houston.
Solution. There it is. There's my solution. We're gonna move Doug for a little bit. We'll bring him back in the show later. Doug, we love you, buddy.
Yes, this is going to be painful for Doug, but I do have a fun story for him when we close up our chapter on the college football playoff. This is the final 4-team college football playoff game of the era. From here on out, it's going to be 12 teams until it expands to 16, and then hopefully we get to I don't know. I feel like 16 is probably the right answer.
Yeah, it's gonna be 12 is next year.
Yeah, I think we're going that direction. But as we said a few times, we think college football is going to change fundamentally anyway.
Yeah.
That's a whole different discussion. Let's stick with the task at hand here. And let's talk about the College Football Playoff National Championship between Washington and Michigan. Two undefeated powerhouses going at it in this game. But it finally happened. Michael Penix's injury proved to be too much for the Huskies to overcome here.
Yeah, no, and that's ultimately the game difference. That and then Michigan's ability to control the ball offensively through Blake Corum really widened this gap. This really was a 21-point game. I don't really think it was much closer than that.
Well, going into the halftime, it was only a 7-point game. And then I was putting my kids to sleep. I missed the entire third quarter and about first 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. But what I did see and kind of what I went back and looked at was Michigan really committed to putting the ball on the ground and just running the
Run the clock, kill the clock. Yep.
And Blake Corum was good enough to do it. Michael Penix had a interception that very nearly went for 6. It was like a 78-yard return all the way down to about the 5-yard line. I've seen a couple people say it already, and I wonder what your thoughts are. If you're a backup quarterback at Washington, are you wanting to stick around for next year after seeing a very clearly less than 100% Michael Penix be the guy that they go to in the biggest game of the year?
You go with your stars, though. Why would you do anything different? This is his last college football game. There's nothing that's going to get me to sit him. The fact that he was willing to play through an injury is massive to me. That's how much the game meant to him and to the school. You got to put your best players out there to win.
They brought in transfer Will Rogers from Mississippi State.
At the very end of the game, right? Like last fucking drive of the game?
No, for next season.
Okay, there you go.
So, yeah, in that case, yeah, I'm probably transferring out if they have another quarterback. But, hell, I'm staying if I'm the number 2 on that depth chart. If they have that much faith in the starter that they're going to stick with him through an injury,
well, I think
got him there.
I think the bigger thing here too is they were able to get a little something going against Texas, make it a game when it was out of reach. That was Texas's game.
Yeah.
And then they made it a game, and the defense was able to bail them out at the end there. And I say bail them out. The defense made a great play to break up what would have been the game-winning touchdown for the Longhorns. The problem was the defense wasn't able to stop Blake Corum. The defense wasn't able to recover from the mistakes that Michael Penix was making. And the one consistent thing I saw from what I saw of this game is when Michael Penix had the ball in his hand, he didn't look comfortable even in a clean pocket. Something was just completely off. He missed Roma Dunze wide open. That would have been a tying touchdown, I believe, at the very start of the game, or it would have made it a 10-7 game. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I mean, there were other throws. His other interception to start the second half, I saw a highlight of that. Again, just completely missing something and not looking comfortable at all with the ball in his hand.
No, I agree. And sometimes that's what the defense is showing you. If they're showing something different than what you prepped for, you're going to be uncomfortable. If he had any kind of injury that was nagging, which we know he did, that can make you uncomfortable, but he'd played through it to that point anyway. So that's a tough one. My question for you guys, Michigan owned this game. There's no doubt they owned it from start to finish. My question for you, and if Doug wants to pop in, he's more than welcome to. Does a national championship, knowing the NCAA, change their investigation?
I think Doug is absolutely going to have an opinion on this. And I think what's more interesting to all of this is that this is the first 15-0 team in the Big Ten's history. Obviously, it's the most games they've had to have that opportunity to play. I mean, this was a monumental game for Michigan and the Big Ten.
Yeah. I mean, it was a Big Ten championship either way.
We were getting an undefeated 15-0 champion, whoever won. It just happened to be Michigan. I honestly couldn't tell you what's going to happen. I really couldn't, because
I just don't trust the NCAA, and I think something like this, it's not the era of Pete Carroll. It changes how they look at it, and I think it ultimately does change the way they levy their decisions.
Here's what I think is going to happen. If Jim Harbaugh stays, which I don't know
I don't think
why
he
he
is.
would leave. I don't know why that keeps getting so much buzz.
He signed a new
But
agent. There's a lot of traction to him leaving.
if he leaves, I think Michigan might end up in some hot water. If he stays, there's no shot because then they have to discipline him too.
The other reason I think since you brought it up, I think he's on the way out. Michigan offered him a new contract. I think it was a 10-year with a no NFL clause. He has not signed it yet. It's been out for like a week and a half. So he's going to listen to some offers.
Speaking of Jim Harbaugh contracts, we talked about it 2-3 years ago. When they re-signed him and he hadn't won anything, and now look at where we're at now.
Well, yeah,
the other
thing
thing
that happens.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing that's interesting about this, I put it up in the Discord. Washington 2 years ago played Montana, paid them over $600,000 for that game, and lost. And then both teams went to the national championship game in their respective division, and what do you know? Both teams lost. So maybe something's not quite right between Washington and Montana. We'll get to Montana a little bit later.
Yeah. All right. Actually,
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say if you have something else, add it in because I was just gonna say push us on, bring Doug back in.
Yeah, no, I've got two things. I kind of want to bring Doug back for both of them because the first one is more of a draft conversation that has to that has to do with these two quarterbacks, and the second thing is something that Doug will appreciate. So to start it off, Michael Penix Jr. went out and played his heart out. All guts. I don't know who doesn't want a guy like that on their roster, especially playing quarterback. But I wonder if his performance in this game statistically affects his draft stock.
I don't think so because the scouts are going to look beyond one game. That being said, he's still, to me, if I were to grade him amongst the talent in the draft, he's probably the number 2 quarterback I would have on the roster. He's probably still a top 10 pick. I'm not going to knock him just for one game.
Thoughts on Michael Penix?
He's fun.
Where's his draft stock? Talk to me.
I mean, I wouldn't take him day one. There's no fucking point taking a 2,800-year-old quarterback day one when he's got fucking knee problems out the ass. Dude's been injured ever since he played in Indiana. So there's no fucking point drafting this guy.
So that brings me to the winner, the guy that was on the other side of the ball, JJ McCarthy. And Doug, I bring this up because you were with me at my in-laws house and he was going on and on about JJ McCarthy and how all he does is win. But the problem is comparing the two statistically, even in this game, JJ McCarthy's a fucking game manager.
I hate that argument. And you're not wrong. That's not a bad analysis. I hate that argument because what's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with that.
But both of your arguments then, because that was the dumbest retort you could think of for that exact argument with JJ McCarthy specifically. Listen to this. He's a game manager at the team up north. Yes, he literally is. Because that's all they ask him to do.
Yes.
Not because that's all he is capable of. And I understand that, and I hate him for it. So here's the thing. When you watch him play the Ohio State, the only game he ever shows up for in his entire fucking life, every fucking year, he plays his fucking ass off. And he does it. He has talent, arm talent. He can scramble. He can evade pressure. He can make reads it's unbelievable watching him do this. Every other game, he's handing the ball off to Blake Corum or Donovan Edwards. Who gives a shit if you can launch the ball 70 yards when you have two different running backs who can both run for 70 yards and do it a lot more safely? So you hand the ball off in those situations. Of the quarterbacks not named Caleb Williams and Drake May, there is going to end up being a discussion on the number 3 quarterback. It will probably end up being Jaden Daniels. But if JJ McCarthy goes to the NFL draft this season, he legitimately has a shot to be a first-round pick. And it's not because of his stats. And it's not because he's great at being a game manager. It's because he has a lot of potential. And he has the skills and the tools to be successful. And it's gross and get me out of here. Fuck you for making me talk about this shit.
All right, let's push it, man, before Doug loses his mind again.
I'm not even going to bring up the last thing. That was worth it. Doug, I'll let you take it away here for the FCS championship game.
I mean, fucking bring it on. You want to talk something else? I ain't stopping you.
I didn't have anything football related to bring up. So.
All right. And then suck it. Going to the game that actually fucking mattered this weekend, the actual Division I football championship, the one that's recognized by the NCAA, and the one that's going to be still standing in the next 10 years. So take that. This one was South Dakota State against Montana. This is Missouri Valley, Big Sky, classic matchup. Feels like a matchup we've had several times the past couple of years. But actually, most recent one would have been, North Dakota State, Montana State?
Yeah.
So we get South Dakota State, Montana for this one. And expected a great game. There are a lot of things that both of these teams do very well. But it turns out South Dakota State just does all of those things a little bit better.
The Jackrabbits are just too much, man.
Yeah.
What's crazy to me is this game was 21-3 at half, and then Montana said, "No, you can score one more field goal, and that's it."
Well, that math doesn't check.
That's not at all true.
Or 20-3 at half.
No, it was
no.
It was close at half. I think it was 7-3 at half.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I'll look at it in the third quarter. I don't know.
Yeah, it was 7-3 at half, and then South Dakota State came out, and I think they scored 2 quick ones in the second half to kind of put it away. Because Doug, that was the point where you hit us up in the chat, and you were like, "Dude, this game has turned quickly," and South Dakota State took control of this game. It was about halfway through the third quarter.
Well, really, it was at the second touchdown, there was about 2 minutes left in the third quarter when that touchdown happened. But then Montana fumbled the ball away, and that's when I said the game's over. And then they kicked a field goal, and that was the last score of the game, was still in the third quarter. So, there was absolutely nothing Montana could do offensively.
Yeah.
After halftime. Even in the first half, they were very limited. They did get a field goal up, obviously, but I don't know that there was much else. I mean, you couldn't ask for anything else out of this offense. There was nothing in front of them all day.
We've said it all year. South Dakota State is on a different level this year. They returned most of their starters from last year, with the exception of, I think it's Tucker Kraft. And then was it this year or the year before that Pierre Strong went to the NFL draft? But outside of that, it really didn't matter. South Dakota State returned most of their team. Their coach was hand-gifted a national championship caliber team, and he did not get in their way, which is what you like to see.
Yeah, undefeated, 15-0. Jackrabbits here. The only travesty out of all of this is that they did not receive a single vote in the AP Top 25 when, I got to be honest with you, they would beat the vast majority of teams in the FBS.
You give it to me this year, and I'll take South Dakota State over Iowa.
I would take South Dakota State probably somewhere around 32.
Well, interesting. I don't have a good comeback to that at the moment because that felt very thought out. But it probably wasn't that thought out.
I think here's what here's kind of what I'm going through. If I'm looking at probably like the top 30 or so teams, if they played 3 times, South Dakota State probably wins at least one of them. You start getting into the mid 30s, that's where they start getting two out of 3. You start getting in like past the 50th best team at the FBS level, they're winning all 3 of those games.
Here's the thing. Look at the bottom of the top 25, the final 8 people. I would probably taking South Dakota State over SMU. I'm calling it about even with Kansas It's about even with Iowa. And I would take South Dakota State over Liberty 24 times out of 24.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So the fact that they didn't get ranked compared to those teams, sure, I'm going to pick Clemson over South Dakota State this year, even though this was a quote-unquote down year for Clemson. I'm not asking to put them in the top 10. I'm asking to put them they're a better team than Liberty. I mean, come
Give
on.
them some votes. Yeah.
There's some bad teams in this top 25. I did not expect a couple of these teams to be in here, honestly. I hadn't looked at it because, let's be real, who gives a shit about this final ranking? It's about as pointless as the first ranking.
Yep.
Right.
But yeah, I would have to agree with you. They would absolutely beat Liberty, probably beating Iowa, probably beating SMU.
If they were cool, they would have had 23, then 24 South Dakota State, and 25 Harding, but they're not cool like that.
The D2 champs.
Hell yeah. Hey, you beat Colorado School of Mines, you get votes to the top 25.
Oh, I didn't realize this was under the. Oh God, did we do this wrong?
Yeah, you did.
No,
apparently.
you fucked it.
I didn't see the other two underneath, so I didn't know. I saw mine showing, was like, oh God, that can't.
Yeah, you're bad. The whole point of this was we all went 1-1 this show.
Yep.
All right. We all get a different meme though.
Because I got the second tier. I like it. Doug's got the best of the best with the bowl season matchups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't end with a perfect 0.69.
No, but you got the next best
thing,
I did have a 69
in there. It rounds to 69 and it ends with 69. I think it counts.
Beautiful. I'll count it.
Very nice.
Very nice indeed. No music today because we all tied. And I don't think Doug was ever going to let us play the Michigan fight song on this podcast.
No, he would quit right then and there.
But
so, of course, looking at that podium, you would think you know who the winner is. But this is calculated off win percentage, and we've only had one person in BDT Pick'em history to go a perfect 2 for 2 in their Pick'em career. Bulligami is our BDT Pick'em champion.
I like it.
So be sure to stay tuned to our Twitter. We'll be congratulating Bulligami appropriately.
Oh man,
that's amazing!
Absolutely beautiful.
I was looking at the slides. I didn't even look at this one, and I'm shocked right now. I love this.
However, if you are, a college football fanatic, sicko, content creator, hit us up. We'd love to have more guest pickers on next year because that's what makes it fun.
It really does.
But enough of college football. College football's over. Let's move into something a little more fun. The combined UFL, the XFL, and USFL have joined forces to make spring football better or something. I don't know what their tagline is. I don't care. But if you'll notice, they have divided this pretty evenly between the USFL conference and the XFL conference. If you're savvy and you're watching, you'll notice something. I'll explain that in a minute. In the USFL conference, we have the Birmingham Stallions, the Memphis Showboats, the Michigan Sex Panthers, and the Houston Roughnecks. In the XFL conference, we have the Arlington Renegades, the St. Louis Battlehawks, the San Antonio Brahmas, and the DC Defenders. Now, you're probably a little confused of why the Houston Roughnecks are in the USFL conference. I'll make it real simple.
I'm more confused with the fact that they went with the Michigan Sex Panthers. That's an interesting choice of name of your franchise.
They're clamoring for viewers.
It's just the Michigan Panthers for everybody that isn't looking at this graphic. But plain and simple, Birmingham, Memphis, and Michigan all had home games in a home stadium. Ford Field, the Liberty Bowl, and Protective Stadium, the new stadium down there in Birmingham. Houston Did not. The Gamblers were playing in Memphis. However, the Roughnecks were playing at TD-ECU Stadium.
To deck you.
No, it's Touchdown ECU Stadium. Anyway, so I guess as a compromise, they said, hey, we know you had a Houston franchise, but we were the ones that had the deal with the stadium. So we're going to keep the name. We'll let the USFL players be the core of this roster going into the next season. And we'll cover that a little bit more here as well. There were a couple other signings that happened prior to Monday where they had an inner draft between the players from the leftover teams. And oh no, that's in another slide. We'll get into that a little bit more. But to tie in a little bit more college football here, Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium is officially owned by the University of Memphis now.
Nice.
What that means is Fred Smith donated a shit ton of money to upgrade the stadium. And I have no idea what this is going to mean for the Showboat season and if renovations are going on during games, they're going to be able to play there still. I have no clue. But the transfer is done. Memphis has an on-campus stadium, and I'm really curious what the naming situation is going to be because I don't know who the contract with Simmons Bank for the naming rights was through.
So usually that stuff still gets carried over. It will still be Simmons Bank at least for a little bit unless they buy out that contract. But you immediately went to what this does for the Memphis Showboats. But I'm so in tune to college football that I now go, what does this do for realignment? Because that was one of the major issues is Memphis didn't have an on-campus stadium. They do now. Realignment's not done.
I don't think an on-campus stadium is the big deal that everybody fucking makes it out to be. That's neither here nor there. What's extra interesting about this to me, though, is now that this contract has gone through, the University of Memphis is going to get more money for their athletic department by renting out the stadium to the UFL, not the USFL. Sorry. It changes a lot of things for the University of Memphis and college football in general. It's another college football stadium that's going to be used for the UFL, and it is officially a university-owned college football stadium. So this is huge. Looking forward to it. Memphis has an on-campus stadium. I can't wait for the naming rights to be bought out from Simmons Bank. I will personally donate money if I find out there's a way to do that. However, this is what we were talking about. All these teams that no longer exist, they will exist a little bit. 3 players from the New York or Orlando Guardians, rather. 14 from the Seattle Sea Dragons. 32 from the Houston Roughnecks. 7 from the Vipers. 18 from the Philadelphia Stars. 9 from the Pittsburgh Maulers. I wonder if that dude that just signed with the Maulers a couple of weeks ago was one of them. 24 from the New Orleans Breakers and 20 from the New Jersey Generals. Teams drafted. Yeah, of course, these were the teams with the most players drafted in the USFL and XFL dispersal drafts. These were the only other teams available. It is kind of weird and interesting to me that the Gamblers are basically completely erased from this. Nobody's really, if you don't know, you don't know, essentially, is what's going on here. If you want to get a look at what all these rosters look like, I recommend going and checking out each individual team's social medias. They've kind of covered all of these things. Some of the big moves that I know had already happened prior to this were Max Borgi signing with the St. Louis Battlehawks. But as you can see here, Houston, who the Gamblers were the worst of the remaining teams, in my opinion, probably up there with Michigan. I don't think Michigan had the greatest year last year. It makes sense that they were able to get 9, the most former USFL or XFL, all USFL, all XFL team players added to their team. But what's interesting to me is that the 2-time champion Birmingham Stallions had the second most at 6.
All about the draft, man. If you know who you're going after.
Well, this wasn't even the big draft. They still got another draft coming up to get more players into the league. This was simply going with anybody that was under a contract. Do you want them on your roster this year?
No, it doesn't. Like I said, it comes down to the GM and how they're actually picking their team. Or in this case, I think it's just the coaches. I don't know if they have full up GMs.
It's the coaches.
like they're picking the guys that match their team. So if I have a dude that matches my scheme better, even if he's not all USFL or all XFL, I'm going to go take the guy that matches my scheme.
Meanwhile, the XFL champion Arlington Renegades had 3, the least amount, which is more like what you would expect to see here, despite the fact that I think DC and St. Louis were better teams throughout the regular season. All in all, that's not the right button. All in all, I'm incredibly excited for the upcoming USFL, XFL season here. I am curious what that's going to mean for, I guess, subsequent seasons.
Just do me a favor. Never hit that button again. It looks weird.
What, this button?
Oh, God, no.
So,
yeah, it's more football. It's going to be great. When does it start?
March
Thank you.
30th?
It starts March 30th with a battle of champions. The Birmingham Stallions will take on the Arlington Renegades. As far as other matchups, I have no idea what that's going to be. I really don't. I have no clue what any of that's going to look like. I imagine there's going to be a schedule reveal coming soon. Just stay tuned for all that information. We'll get that up to you as soon as we can. I think Tug might actually be trying to search for it right now.
No.
Yeah, that's
not at all.
Clickety clackety.
Man, if only it had a quieter keyboard.
Why?
Right.
That's less fun.
It's more fun for everyone else.
I don't care about everyone else.
Well, fuck you then.
So this was a pretty quick episode.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was on the Wikipedia page for the UFL, and then I got caught up looking at this map of the United States, and for some reason, didn't realize the Missouri River starts like in Yellowstone, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
When I say I'm in West River, South Dakota, it's because I'm west of the Missouri River.
Yeah, I just didn't piece those things together because I didn't ever thought about the Missouri River before in my life because I never gave a shit about the Missouri River.
Nobody ever thinks about the Missouri River.
I mean, I am right now, so disprove that theory. Fuck you. Also, I would really love to go to the start of the Mississippi up in Minnesota. I think that'd be awesome, and it's
just get a sailboat.
Kind of a doable road trip.
Just get a sailboat and sail down.
No, that's not how that works.
It could. It might be.
No, very much not. Get a sailboat and go up the Mississippi.
No, sail down.
Brilliant.
You start at the top and you sail down.
Why would I sail down from Louisville and end up in Minnesota? That's not how down works. I would end up in New Orleans.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying drive to Minnesota and sail down the Mississippi.
No.
Dear Lord, that would take months.
Yeah, you know how low the Mississippi River is right now, too?
No, I don't. I have no idea.
It's incredibly fucking low. I guess you don't. I guess you didn't have a ton of experience driving across the river all the goddamn time.
I have experience driving across one river. It's called the Ohio River, and it's usually deep enough under Cincinnati Bridge that I don't notice how high or low it is.
So to Ben's point,
that little canyon is deep.
So to Ben's point, on October 11th, it was reported Mississippi River dropped to historic lows, 11.5 feet at the city of Memphis.
Yeah, and it didn't look too much better when we were just there.
That's really sad for you, Tug. I know how much you would love it to have more feet.
I was really confused where that was going.
Speaking of feet, we were watching my wife and I were watching the Barbie movie. Tug,
I don't like where this is going.
Like 30 minutes of that movie, you would lose your fucking mind. And Doug knows what I'm talking about too.
I do know what you're talking about. I watched that movie in theaters by myself. Yes, I did.
It's okay. It's
like
not
an
better.
entire week before I went and watched Oppenheimer. It wasn't like a Barbenheimer thing. I went to go see the Barbie movie. It was a good time. What?
Just glad we're friends, my man.
I also, all right, so this was another thing I was looking at. I ended up following the Ohio River all the way up into Pittsburgh. And like I knew generally that the Ohio River like went through Pittsburgh. I didn't know it really was, both the Allegheny and the whatever the fuck this is. I can't pronounce that shit. Monongahela River. And they just
the
come together.
Monongahela.
Sure. And they come together, and that's just we start calling it the Ohio now.
Yeah, that's
Like-
why it was called Three River Stadium.
Oh, I understand the concept of that. I've just never like looked at it on a map, and it just feels really underwhelming. Just how it just
All right.
two
Before
rivers come together, and now we're going to
Before-
call it a different river.
Before I read links, I want to shout out Doug's new podcast. He's going to start it on river geography here. Floating with
Apparently,
Big
there's a
Doug.
lot I didn't know.
Floating with Big Doug. You can find it wherever podcasts are found.
Before you do read links too, I do want to say that if you just go and search UFL on if you get on X on Twitter, if you search UFL, you're gonna find something about a free to play football, as in soccer game. That is at UFL game is the only UFL account that I was able to find, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the real football. It's all this UFL soccer game bullshit. So just keep going to the teams directly, the XFL and the USFL. That's going to be your best bet if you want to freelance and find your own information on your own. Otherwise, like this, I feel like they did not think out a merger as much as maybe they should have.
They did what they've done for the past few years with the spring leagues. They're rushing it. They could have each gone on with their standard seasons as planned.
Here's the problem.
Plan the merge for next year.
The problem is the way the USFL was set up. They should have had everybody going to their individual stadiums this season.
Well,
what I think happened was they saw that wasn't going to happen, so they called the XFL and said, "Hey, why don't we, I don't know, work together?" And that's how we've kind of gotten this big fucking mess that we have right now.
No, and that's fair, but what I'm saying is the XFL should have held it off. Even when you think back to the 60s and 70s, it took the NFL and the AFL about 3 full years after the Super Bowl started to actually officially merge into one league.
Well, and that's the other thing I got to figure out too.
Combine these things.
That's the other thing I got to figure out too, because they had 4 hub cities in the USFL this past season.
Yep.
The XFL still had 1. So every time these players, there were no real home games except for Arlington.
Yeah.
They were the only home team. All these players that played for St. Louis, they would get on a plane with the team they just played and go back to Arlington to the training facilities.
Yeah, they just don't have the money right now to set up their own individual training facilities for these teams like they should. And again, a lot of that's a difference in the business model between even the NFL and these is that whereas the NFL is an agreement between 32 separate organizations, this one organization runs all of these separate teams. That's hard to overcome, especially when you're trying to get started. Doug, what is going on over there, man? I see that smile getting bigger and bigger.
So I followed the Missouri River down to, now I'm looking at the Madison River, which like feeds the Missouri River, but the Madison River goes through Enos Lake.
All right, ladies. Ben, do you got anything else before
That's
I
so
start
good.
reading links?
Fucking Enos.
God. Yeah, the person who invented autocorrect should burn in hello.
God damn it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, our links will be linked in the description below as always. I will read them off for you because these two nutbags like to hear my voice for some reason. We have our patreon.com/btfootball, facebook.com/btfootball, x.com/bdtfootball, youtube.com/@bigdudesinthetrenches, twitch.tv/bigdudesinthetrenches. All of those are all one word. Instagram.com/BT_football, BDTfootball.com, mailbox@BDTfootball.com. And our Discord, as always, will be linked in the description below. Sorry, not sorry.
Hey, Tug.
Question. Which one?
Go ahead.
Which
One of
of
you
us gets
two.
to go first?
I don't.
You.
All right, I'll go. You called us nutbags. Does that imply that you don't have one? Because
No.
that's brutal.
No, I have 3. You 2 and the one on me.
What?
You have 3 nuts?
No, nut bags.
Triple nut?
There's a difference. What's up, Bug?
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Broken sword.
Broken sword who?
Never mind. It's pointless. Got him.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. That is all the time we have on the show today. Thank you for watching and or listening. And just remember, you can't win a game if you can't win in the trenches.